the old news is that they've retired from casting.
There's new news.
The new news is that the team is back together. The Immortal Minds have put themselves together as a duo, and they've joined 100 Thieves. They've joined Nadeshot's Circus of Chaos. This one, we alluded to a little bit. He brought it up a little bit. We talked about it when it was about Sean Gares, retiring from competitive broadcasting, didn't know what he was going to do. Quickly followed up, although he was going to stay.
Oh, no, he knew what he was going to do.
No, we didn't know what he was going to do. He was going to stay in competitive Valorant. So everyone was like, oh, he's going to coach Sentinels, this, that, the other. We knew that right after that, DDK would probably be making some sort of announcement. Well, that did happen.
We speculated that Sean stopping would definitely affect Dan because those two were adamant about working together as a duo. So turns out we were right. Turns out I might have had prior information when I said that it would affect Dan probably, but I couldn't really say too much about that.
So obviously the news that we want to chat about is the old news is that they've retired from casting.
There's new news.
The new news is that the team is back together. The Immortal Minds have put themselves together as a duo, and they've joined 100 Thieves. They've joined Nadeshot's Circus of Chaos. Yeah, look,
probably a good time for this, obviously, if 100 Thieves are sort of flailing a little bit. It's a trio of Immortal Minds, because obviously Mike's was as part of this sort of group of guys. Mike's is a guy that we've been really lucky to have on Valoranting a few times. Really erudite individual, fantastic mind for Valorant, and absolutely a suitable coaching candidate. He worked with the Envy team for a while as well. He's been on a couple of Valorant teams, and I think this is definitely great. It is definitely the boys, bringing the boys in, but I think that someone like Nadeshot saw an opportunity to snap up two of definitely the sharpest minds currently not involved in Valorant teams, and as 100 Thieves always aims to do, they're matching that excellence in their esports endeavors with brand strength, popularity, this is a great way to strike while the iron's hot, especially why goodwill is absolutely overflowing for both these two gentlemen. This is like one of the few situations where I could feel satisfied with the outcome of this. I was obviously really upset with what happened with the two of them, as they're friends of mine, especially Dan. Dan and I worked very closely on trying to develop some standards that Riot would have to adhere to when it came to dealing with their talent. Riot gave us the fight of our lives. They really did not want to step up and sort of join us in the year 2022 in terms of how their contracts were put together and how their talent were treated. So in one element, that fight has not been given up on, but Sean and Dan have decided to make a choice to fucking preserve their mentals, and I respect that. It's an interesting choice to 100 Thieves, obviously, because first of all, these guys are a duo of casters, and I think the dynamic between them definitely changes in this role assignment. It's going to be pretty hard to be a GM and a head coach and be like, oh, we're on even footing, we're peers here. Ultimately, like Dan will... I don't think it will be a problem because the two of them don't have any egos.
Yes.
They don't. Neither of them have a fucking ego, Scott. But it will be a sea change from them being, on a level.
But
footing.
You know who has an ego?
Who's that? Oh, Nadeshot? Yeah, but I think the strength...
A healthy one,
the strength of Nadeshot's content comes from him giving a strong impression that he doesn't have one. So I think that, he's... This video is not really about DDK and Sean. It's about Nadeshot deciding to hire DDK and Sean. But I think it's still a good piece of content. It's worth listening to. I think what DDK and Sean say about what they're going to do is pretty standard stuff. So just to spoil that, it's like, obviously we want winning is the most important thing. We've got a lot of things we want to institute. Bit of context on Dan, obviously, has someone who's been very interested in cognition and sort of performance training, the mind, the body connection, huge into fitness, calisthenics. He's also, really into sports psychology. And the guy's... He's extremely, I think, gifted in this particular role. So I think that outside of my affiliations with the two of them, it makes sense. I think Zelsis actually posted a mock-up of Sean joining 100 Thieves like a couple months ago just to troll. And it turns out that actually came true. So enough about my thoughts, though. What do you think about this?
Yeah, again, I think it's a great scoop up by Nadeshot and gang. He has gone on record several times defending lots of roster changes to, again, seeking victories, seeking winning, nothing but winning. So, again, great pickup in the sense of what might possibly help you win, right? If these guys bring what's inside those brains and they can effectively get it out of their brains and the players listen and they can build rosters, they are poised to do some damage, right? No doubt about it. And two incredibly well media-trained individuals joining an incredibly well-oiled media-trained company. So outside of what they should do to win shit, they should also be able to represent the brand really well, make good content, interviews, all that kind of stuff, because you pay the bills by the content as well, right? So they'll have to do that kind of stuff. Hopefully they will lean into, like, Immortal Minds could become a 100 Thieves product and get elevated, and they maybe get the views they deserved as a podcast. Here's where I put my, like, okay, Scoots is going to be Scoots hat on.
Yeah, do that.
The very much shades of Henry G, Colossus, Cloud9 again, right? Very storied caster of Counter-Strike, also pedigreed player of Counter-Strike. So player brain, not just a well-spoken guy. Henry G takes a very daunting task of taking a not-so-good roster, building one into something, lots more money.
I think it's harder to save NACS and NA Valorant, but I see what you're saying.
Hyped up differently, different circumstances, but again, someone trying something totally outside their wheelhouse, even though they might be good at it. And obviously, I wouldn't say that Cloud9 failed because of Henry and all those kind of things, and you can't lay that on one person. But now these two guys have gone from one world that Sean's used to, pressure of winning. He used to be a player. Now they have that again.
Dan did as well. Dan was a Quake player.
Yeah, much more in the past. But yeah, certainly was a pro Quaker. And that's how I met him. He was doing Quake for Face It, actually, years ago. Anyway, but now they've got that pressure again, right? They're not just showing up to talk about the matches. They got to bring trophies, too. Jason brought up a point to me the other day. He turned to me and he goes, what happens when Dan has to fire Sean? Because in sports, the general manager cleans the house when he has to,
I
right?
think they both go if one of them goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I started smiling, and I'm like, well, God, I'm like, perfect world. They win championships. No one gets fired. But that is the downside of this. It doesn't work. People have to get fired, right?
Oh, yeah. 100 Thieves are cutthroat as fuck. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. If your team doesn't win, you're fucked. I mean, I spoke to...
And what happened? Again, back to Henry. They all got fired. The whole fucking division got closed, right? Which you don't want to see, and I don't see Nate
They
Shop
will
pulling
100% get fired. Like that. I spoke to Papa Smithy, who is the GM. Here's another example of a caster becoming a GM of a 100 Thieves division. He's a GM of the League of Legends team. And I guarantee you, like, he basically said, like, I felt like I was probably going to get fired after we got, like, 4th place and didn't get where we wanted to go. Like, there is a very real chance of that happening.
Yep.
Nadeshot will fucking kick your ass to the curb if you don't get results. And that's a bit different to being a caster, because there are so many casters that mail it in and have mailed it in for years and are chilling. So it's definitely going to be a higher stress environment to compete in.
I mean, I love it.
Also, this 100 Thieves roster, there are some elements on this team that coaches and GMs have been too afraid to fuck with, right? So the first order of business is going to be rebuilding this roster.
Yep.
What do they keep? What do they get rid of? I have a feeling there's going to be some pretty iconoclastic moves that go down with this roster, and that already is a lot of pressure out of the gates. How are you going to build a new roster for this team?
Yeah. I mean, are they keeping Hiko or not? Hiko and Sean do have
There's no
history.
fucking way they're keeping
They have
Hiko.
history, you know. So we you know, they played Counter-Strike together, yada, yada.
They're not keeping him, man.
So
no
we shall
fucking
see.
way.
And I also
Keep
think...
Arsenal. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. That will be big.
That's what I think.
That'll be a big clean.
Yep.
What I also like about it is, you know, because we've talked about it for years, we have to get away, you know, in Counter-Strike, where it kind of started, because we were kind of one of the first ones to embrace coaches in a way. And but it's always been, okay, you can coach, we might listen to you, but we still decide the 5 people that play. The player-run rosters, if you will. Team owner, you got to cut this kid. You know, so this is also that professionalization, if it works, or if they get listened to. GM, coach, very standard front office sports stuff, right? GM runs it, coach, you know, and again, so if they all embrace it, then we're heading towards professional sports, right?
Do the players buy into this also DDK Sean setup? I would say yes. I think Sean has a lot of respect from old CS players for his time in that scene, and a lot of the players also respect Dan and his casting from that time. So you know, we theorized initially that it would be like a Sean to Sentinel scenario, and we also thought that this would be one of the only coaches that maybe Shazam and co would want to be under. I don't think that's a concern there. It's you know, it's good. I'm really happy to see them more than land on it. I'm quite sure they made out like bandits here.
It's awesome. And I'm obviously an old guy, so I saw, you know, Sean's got 2 kids and a wife. Dan is engaged, gonna get married, probably have kids. Jobs like this get you insurance benefits, get you going home at night, that's when you're traveling with the team. the freelance road that they would have been on otherwise. See ya, especially when we start traveling again.
It is stuff. Look, unreal respect to Sean
It's
because
good shit.
You've seen, like, I think anyone who follows me on social media has seen what having a kid does, and it just means you don't have time for bullshit.
Yep.
And maybe you lack some sleep, but mostly you don't have time for nonsense. And that is exactly what was getting done to Sean. The fact that, I respect it. I could never do this. The fact that he kept it together so well, never really complained.
He's a saint. He's always been
and then when
a
it
saint.
happened, he was very charitable about Riot on his stream. So I know differently. I know what happened behind the scenes, but I know that Sean won't get mad at me for saying this, but I know that Riot definitely frustrated him to a great degree, and he was extremely professional about it. So credit to him, better man than I am. But yeah, so good news, and obviously Mike's. He like when he comes on Valoranting, he just fucking carries the show because he really knows what he's talking about. Very dry guy, very analytical. Maybe not the kind of guy you put on an analyst desk or whatever, but he's really well suited for the job. So good move,
and obviously,
great timing.
Yeah, and he's going to certainly help them execute the vision.
Yes.
Right, absolutely.
Yep.
So,
stars aligned in a big way. He's really good at the nuts and bolts and nitty gritty. So congrats to them.